People might misunderstand what we're trying to say, you know? But that's a part of life. Come on, let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things, all the bad things that make me. Let's talk about sex.
Let's talk about sex.
Let's do it. Let's talk about sex.
Yes. Hey, everyone.
Welcome to our first episode of RelatableAF Podcast with Stacey and Melanie. I'm Stacey.
I'm Melanie.
And tonight is our first episode, like I said, so that means we don't have everything figured out. But we have a lot to say and we want to be heard, and so we're just going to go with it tonight.
Yep, and you can't wait for things to be perfect, right?
That's right. You can't.
Just got to go for it.
You can't.
And perfect it along the way. So join us on our journey.
Yeah.
So we've known each other for 20 years. We've been friends forever. And we've been talking about doing a podcast for a long time.
Literally years. And 6 months ago, I called her. There was something in me that was just like, F this day. The day was bad. And I was like, F this, we got to do this. And so I called her up, and she's always down if I'm down. So here we are.
Yep. That was 6 months ago, and it took us until today.
We've been busy.
Yes.
That's what we say, right? We always make excuses. So when we have ideas, we always make these excuses. And so we're done doing that, and here we are.
Yep. And another thing that led us here, I was on a podcast this past weekend on one that I watch all the time. I've been watching it for about 6 months now, and never imagined I'd actually be on the show, but I was in Miami for a dance event and just sent them a message, somehow ended up on the show, on their panel of women that they have on there. I have a little bit different views than most women that go on there. And we figured we'd just use the momentum from that. And it got us kind of excited about doing our own podcast again. So we just decided, let's do it.
And we originally wanted to talk about a lot of different things, like motivation and different things. But then she went on this podcast, and it made us realize what our purpose is and what we're supposed to be talking about. So do you want to explain a little bit what we're talking about?
Sure. So I have been doing a lot of work in the masculine and feminine energies.
And I haven't.
Yeah, and she hasn't. After my divorce last year, I just decided I needed to figure out why this didn't work. It seemed like it was meant to be. There's no way it could fail. And then somehow it still ended up failing. And so I needed to understand what it was about me, because that's all we can control is ourselves. And so I needed to know what it was about me that contributed to the downfall of my marriage. Not saying that it was only me, but it takes two to tango. And I feel like it was just a combination of things. And it has to do with this subject. Traditional gender roles are actually how they're not so traditional in today's society. And disclaimer, we are not referring to anything that has to do with LGBTQ+.
Nope.
We don't understand that because we are heterosexual women.
Yep.
And that's what we're going to be talking about, is just cisgender heterosexual stuff. So anyone listening that falls into the LGBTQ+ community, we're glad to have you. But again, we're not referring to anything outside of what we understand.
Yep. And so it's interesting because Melanie has been on this journey, and I've watched her go on this journey, but I didn't fully understand the whole masculine feminine thing. We are both very independent and masculine, and we always have been. This is how we've always been. And so it's been cool to watch her go through that journey and see her become more feminine. Like I said earlier, I have not went through that journey, so I'm still the same. But she sent me a video recently, and I was like, just watching it. And it was a woman that has a podcast herself that it's on her, what Melanie's saying. She's been through it, and she believes in these certain views that we'll get into. And I was like, fuck her, like I just thought it was stupid. But then Melanie goes on the show, so of course I had to watch it, and because she was on it, otherwise I wouldn't be watching it at all. And it completely opened me up and made me realize that I am open to this and learning more about it. And so I am coming at her from that view, and then she's going to explain more about just what the views are.
And to add on to that, I believe that you can't lie to your soul. So when you hear something that resonates, even if it triggers you at first, because you have this programming or conditioning or whatever, you're just so stuck in your ways, in your mindset, it might be triggering at first to hear some of these things, but then if you actually listen to the words and the message and really ponder it, I think that's what happened with you, right? Like you watched the show.
Yeah.
Because when I first started talking to you about this, you're kind of just like, meh.
Yeah, I think I'm like everyone else that doesn't understand it. I truly think most people don't. And so, for example, Andrew Tate, a lot of people don't really know what he says. They just kind of know a little bit about him. And when you know a little bit about him, you only kind of hear the negative and like clips of what he says. But if you really, I'm not completely on his side, but if you really listen to these people that have these views, they do make sense. And it shows how much society has conditioned us to feel like, I mean, women should be empowered, but it's like they have made us feel like we don't need a man. We don't need a man. We can do whatever men can do. And so it's interesting how much that's changed since the past. And that's why we're where we're at today.
Right. And also coming from a man, because they are different. We are not the same.
Right.
Coming from a man, hearing these things as a woman, in my own experience, was more triggering than hearing it from a woman, because a man, like they say on the show I went on, they don't care about our feelings when it comes to things they consider fact. They're very logical beings. And I mean, they care about our feelings, but when it comes to facts are facts. And they're not gonna.
They're very logical. And we're not as logical. We do lead with our emotions. So we can get defensive quickly. Even though it's a fact, we can still get, So I agree with that. And so,
So should we just get into some Q&A? And what questions did you have about the show?
Let me see. When I first watched it, I didn't like it. Like I didn't like them at all. But I watched it again and it got better, but I didn't like them. So I want to talk about how they view relationships. So I don't want to just be specific about this show only, just in general, what this view or whatever we call it, this role, whatever this is, a movement, whatever, how they view a relationship should be.
Well, and that's the other thing, because there are many different relationship coaches out there. I'm in a polarity group. That's what I hinge my beliefs on now, because it's changed my whole paradigm. And there's a lot of overlap, but like the show I went on is very, very different from the group that I'm in on Facebook.
Right.
But there are a lot of the same core messages, but then a lot of things are different. So for example, one of the main messages that is kind of the same across all of those is that a man should be the leader. A man should be the leader in the relationship, and the woman should be the one who submits. Now, this might be one of those things that may be triggering to some people to hear that. And a few years ago, it triggered me also. And I would argue like, no, that doesn't have to be. It can be equal. It can be like sometimes
50-50, man.
Exactly. Yeah. But when you really think about it like this, what happens when there's a disagreement between two people? You love each other a lot. You want to agree all the time, but no two people are going to agree on everything all the time. So at some point, someone has to be the one that says, okay.
That submits.
Someone has to be the one that says, okay, I don't have to win this.
Yeah.
I don't have to win this fight. Man. You know what I mean?
And that is so not common, I feel like, in marriages these days. I really don't think it is because of this whole dynamic and everything that it's not.
Yeah. And we can get into why and all these things in other episodes, but today's kind of more just the what. So yeah it's like,
so what's this relationship is a man and a woman, and she's supposed to be submissive. What else? What traits?
Or what does that truly mean? Because a lot of people think that just means they're a doormat and they're just going to get
exactly what I thought. Exactly.
And that's why it's triggering for women, because they don't want to be doormats. We don't want to be doormats. Right. We don't want to be the one that never gets our way or whatever, but that's not what it means.
Yeah.
When the polarity is balanced and the woman respects her man, because that's what is most important to a man. He needs to feel like he's respected.
Yeah.
Most by his wife.
And the other day she explained it like this. Explain the dad thing. Just the way you respect your dad. It was a good example.
Yes, because it's more like a fatherly type of energy. Because he, feeling respected, will reciprocate by wanting to give you what you want.
For sure.
And this is all men that are non-abusive. We're not talking about any of the outliers here. We're talking more in general. But a man who feels respected by his woman is going to in turn want to devote to her. Yeah. He is going to want to give her what she wants. He's going to want to make her happy.
Yeah.
And so that's all there is to it. It's kind of like, and in my marriage, I never wanted to back down. I mean, I was a right fighter. It's like, I'll fight. Like, even if I don't really care that much, it's like, I want to win this fight and I want you to tell me I'm right and you're wrong. But really at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. What matters is keeping the peace, keeping the harmony. And yeah. And when you start,
why do you think we're like that? Why do you think we want to be right? What is it? Is it that empowerment thing? Like, what is it? Why do we care?
I think it has to do with the whole being so emotional.
Oh yeah.
I think that it's just when we're triggered, because then I'll go back to my own experience when I would calm down after the fight. It's like, why did I even do that? Because I don't even care that much.
Yeah.
So it's like
in the moment.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
It's called the amygdala hijack when you're in your brain, it takes over. It's like the lizard brain. If you've ever heard that, it's the part of our brain that is a survival instinct.
Yeah.
So it's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn.
Yep.
So we go into one of those reactions when we're triggered. A lot of people fight. They want to fight.
Yeah.
Some people
run.
They run. They're just avoiding it. And this is men and women, both.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Some people they'll avoid an argument at all costs. And that can be the destruction of a relationship as well, because sometimes I believe you have to have arguments.
Yeah, it's good. It's healthy. It's healthy to do it. Yeah, for sure.
And conflict is growth trying to happen. It's things. I mean, when you run away from conflict and you never resolve it, that just breeds like a cancer, like inside of you emotionally, you know, like because
and there's resentment.
Yeah. You don't feel heard by your partner. You don't feel, whereas sometimes when you argue, you can get to the resolution of where, okay, now I see where they're coming from. It took a fight. It took yelling. It took all that to get there, but it can sometimes bring a lot more understanding.
So one thing that triggered me on the show was, and you know, their views may be different, but still they have a lot of followers. They have 1 million plus. So one of the hosts said something about his girl. I think he has many girls not going on a girls trip. And it's like, so you can't go on a girls trip? Like, what's up with that? I don't like that. You know, like why? I'm not going to stay home all the time. While my man's out doing whatever he wants. Why can't you go on a girls trip? Why is that not okay when you can do it? I just don't get that.
A lot of that to me is insecurity
on the man.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I believe anyone, man or a woman, if they're secure in their relationship and there's that trust there, they're not really going to care because they know that person.
Right.
However, this is what I have to say about that, because sometimes we can't help if we feel insecure because of our past trauma.
Right.
Sometimes it has nothing to do with the person that you're with.
Yeah, of course.
It could have something to do with I was cheated on.
Like that,
I was cheated on in the past. And it was when my girl went on a girls trip. And so now I just feel insecure.
Yes.
So here's what I feel is a good answer to that. A good answer to that would be, okay, you're not going to stop me from going on my girls trip, but if you want to come and like do your own thing while I'm with my girls on the beach or, you know, whatever, like we might carve some time out for us to be together or whatever. But if he needs to see me in that hotel room with him every night to calm his own fears, I would be willing to do that for my man. And that's the whole submission part of it. Yeah. Because it's like, you don't want to do that.
You know what though? So you know how, if that were to happen, you know how your friends would view you, and that's just normal. It's normal right now.
That's what I was going to say.
Be like, are you kidding me? Your man has to go. Like, are you kidding me? Like, he's a psycho. Like, that's what happened.
And that's what I was going to say, because it's like, that's where the submission part comes in, because you don't really want to do that. Right. You don't really want to have to bring your man if he's insecure, but that's what a relationship is. And that's submitting to his lead. It's like, it's like, okay, well,
and maybe it'll help him get over it. Maybe it'll help him grow and get over it.
And maybe he wouldn't even, when it comes down to it, maybe he wouldn't even go, but just knowing that you're willing to let him go might help him with that.
For sure. Yeah.
And I think that's what a relationship is. It's like, we all have our fears. We all have our traumas. We all have our baggage that we're bringing to something. And so if you can just help each other through that, whatever that may look like for that particular couple. I mean, I told someone that I was with that wanted to go with me on a girls trip, like, fine, come with me then. Because at the end of the day, my girls might tease me at first, but they don't really give a shit either.
Right. It's a good example too of a relationship, kind of, you know, unless it's more of a controlling situation. That's where it gets tricky, because there's some men who are very controlling in an unhealthy way that like, I have to be there all the time because I could, you know, and that's not healthy, but that's something different.
Well, should we go into what the difference is?
Yeah.
Should we go into that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's such thing as like an abusive relationship where it's like that, where you can't even go to the store unless I'm with you because somebody might see you and they might get you. I mean, that's something totally completely different from someone that has just some baggage they're bringing to the relationship for whatever reason. They have fears, but they're willing to recognize I have these insecurities.
Yeah.
They're not just going to sit there and say, you have to do everything I say.
Yeah.
But if they come at it like, and I don't necessarily believe a man should come to his woman and say, I have these insecurities. But if you understand that, I mean, you should know your partner well enough to know where they're coming from most of the time. It's just about a balance. Like anything else, it's like a balance.
Okay. So you're saying that a man should be upfront about his insecurities, right? So these
not necessarily verbally, but by the way he leads, by how he leads his woman.
Okay. So these men out there, what are they teaching men to be like? What's their teaching methods? What do they say? Because they're teaching men. So men are out here right now. This podcast, for example, just because she was on it, they have girls on at the end, right? It's a separate little after show. But their purpose is to help men be more what?
Be more high value. So their purpose is to teach men how to become a top percenter in the bucket and pool of men out there. So that way they're not these desperate, I'll do anything for you if you just give me a chance to be your man type of men.
Which is what we see a lot. But what's hard is, if we're seeing men like that all the time, it's hard because we don't look at them as masculine when they're like that.
Right.
And there's so many of them. So then of course we're going to feel superior. Of course and that's the point. I get that.
That is the point, because then what that does in return is it masculinizes the women and it feminizes the man.
Absolutely.
When a man is secure in himself and he knows that he's a high value man, he knows that he makes enough money to provide for whoever he chooses to be his wife. He knows that, he's going to demand his respect.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing that we got into on the show is that I liked it when my ex-boyfriend would tell me, I don't like how you just said that to me, because I felt disrespected by that. Because a lot of times if you don't even know that they feel disrespected by you, you might not even be meaning to disrespect them. And just something you said or the tone that you said it with or whatever the case may be, that if they don't tell you that, that's going to build resentment in them.
Right.
And then they're going to look at you like, why would I want to devote to somebody who doesn't even respect me?
Yeah.
And then it continues to push the polarity in the wrong direction.
That's a good example of understanding for me. As I learned more about this, is it's not like your husband or boyfriend or whatever is putting you down and treating you like he's above you, but he has the respect for himself and the confidence to say, I don't like that. You're not going to treat me that way. Because other men are more like, I'll do whatever you want. I don't care how you treat me. I'll do whatever you want. And that's just not attractive.
Right.
It's not attractive. And so,
or even if they don't say it like that, even if they're not acting like I'll do whatever you want, if they don't, because this was a problem. I'm just going to say it. I've experienced something like this where the person did not tell me when they felt disrespected, but I didn't mean to disrespect him. So I'm just going around thinking everything's great. We're great. Everything's great.
So he doesn't have the balls to tell you.
Right. But then what happened was he was upset and angry with me and I had no idea. So I just kept on going about my normal thing. If everything is fine. And then it would build till he finally just blew up and he'd yell at me. And I'd have no idea where that was coming from. I'm like, what did I do wrong? It's well, it's what you did wrong 3 days ago, because he hasn't gotten over it, because he hasn't corrected it in you. He hasn't told you.
Yeah. So this high percenter, top percenter wouldn't do that.
Right.
And that wouldn't happen.
He would stop anyone, no matter if it's his woman, no matter if it's the person checking him out at the store, if it's somebody at TSA when he's at the airport. If he feels disrespected, he is going to firmly say, you are not going to talk to me that way.
Okay. And here's the issue with society is when a man does that right now, if a man would go to the airport or whatever and does that, people view it as rude.
They would think that he's an asshole.
Yep.
They'd be
he's
like,
an asshole.
What an asshole. And that's where
that's the problem right now.
Everything is backwards from how it used to be back in the day. Cause I think back in back in the day when our grandparents were little, let's say, there was just more respect for people in general, like in general.
That's why. Absolutely. Yes. It's gotten really bad. Mm-hmm. Okay. So talk to me about what the working situation looks like. So does the wife work or not?
Well, these teachings that I believe in say that a woman should never be in a position where she has to work.
Yep.
That, it makes a man feel like a man when he can provide for his family, which I believe.
Yep.
And I believe that women are so out of touch with their real true desires, just because of society, media, everything, pop culture, that we don't even realize.
Well, even the fact that we're working.
Yeah. And the fact
I work my ass off.
Both of us do.
When I get home from work, I don't feel like cooking and cleaning and being I just don't feel like doing that thing because I'm exhausted,
Yep. But then we also are a lot of times expected to still do that.
I know. Yeah.
And work.
Right.
Because traditionally the woman's role. And I think that we do enjoy taking care of our home and everything, but we're so exhausted because we're trying to be both men and women.
We can't.
We're trying to be both men and women.
We're not made for that.
We're not made for that. And so then what does that do? It breeds resentment in us.
Yes, absolutely.
For our husbands. So you see all these sitcoms like King of Queens and Everybody Loves Raymond and like all these things that, have been out there forever. There's a whole bunch of sitcoms like this where the wife is just this naggy, bitchy wife and the husband just
Home Improvement.
Yes. And then the husband's just like, okay, like, I guess you're the boss. Yep. Happy wife, happy life, Yeah. But it's like, okay, that is not how it should be because both people, if you really truly think about it, both people in that type of scenario are unhappy. Mm-hmm. The wife is bitchy and naggy because she's not happy. Mm-hmm. The husband is not happy being bitched at and nagged at.
Right.
So both people in that scenario are unhappy, but it's kind of like made it okay, like to all of us that are watching it.
For
because,
sure. And you like, but also they do, you relate to it. Mm-hmm. People relate to that.
Like, and that's why it's funny.
Exactly. It's relatable, which is what our name is.
Yeah.
But it's relatable. And that's why you like it. Cause you're like, okay, it's not just me. It's not just me. And it just becomes this huge thing because everyone's like that right now.
Right.
How
many shows out there or movies or whatever, like rom-coms of the 90s and 2000s, like you always see it backwards. Like
for sure.
Like the man did something wrong in a rom-com and then comes chasing back after the woman.
Yeah,
and blah, blah,
they
blah,
have a
blah,
stereo
blah.
outside the window. It's just like,
And it's like, how many examples do we see of
that's so crazy?
A masculine man leading his family and being the one that lays down the law in that house?
I just don't understand why we don't. That's just insane.
If you think about it,
I don't know if we have it back in the day. I mean, I'm curious to watch movies from that time period.
Mm-hmm, me
to see what it's like. We should do that.
Yeah, we should
do that because I'm curious if it's different back then.
Well, something was different back then. Mm-hmm. Something was different. And it's like, I believe that as women, our nature is to want to take care of our family. Mm-hmm. We want to decorate our house and cook meals. And if we had time and that's all we had, we didn't go to work.
Right.
I mean, I'd be making everything from scratch. Shoo, I love cooking.
So I'm married. I've been married a long time. I talked to my husband about this before I left and we aren't in the situation that we're talking about. And I said, if I just stayed home all the time, and he said, will you be at TJ Maxx all day? So we can't do that.
Well, but then again, I mean, this goes so deep. Who knows why you love shopping? Is it because
for sure. It's a stress reliever for me.
Is it an escape for you?
Absolutely.
Is it an escape?
When I'm stressed out, I shop. I know that for a fact.
Exactly. So what are you escaping from? You're escaping from having to be a man.
Well, and I also said I wouldn't be working. I wouldn't need clothes. So I'd be good.
Right.
I don't need my work clothes anymore.
And we could spend our time doing scrapbooks.
Yeah.
But it's no, literally, that's what I really want to do. I love being creative.
Oh yeah.
I love decorating my house. I love taking care of my family.
And you love it feels so good when your house is clean. One time my husband told me this, not in a disrespectful way at all. But I think it was someone was coming over and I wanted my house to be it was his friend or whatever. And I wanted it to be perfect, And he said that it looks bad on the woman, not the man. Mm-hmm. And I didn't take it wrong. Because it's kind of true.
It is true.
And so, I mean, that's the truth.
And it's subconscious.
But a lot of women are supposed to work, right? Because that is our society. Mm-hmm. So we're supposed to work, right?
We're told we're supposed to work.
Right. But a lot of relationships are like that. I can't just go quit my job right now.
But maybe you could.
Well, yeah.
That's the thing. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. But I wish. But yeah,
maybe you
can.
Could.
Maybe I will.
Maybe you
throughout
could.
this podcast. Maybe I'll quit my job. But where was I going with that? Well, but it's like, okay, so we're supposed to work and be in this relationship where we both 50-50, and it looks bad on you if your house is a mess. On me, even though we're 50-50, you know? So it's just crazy.
Well, yeah, and they said, like we saw in the news, like the housewife's coming back.
Yeah.
Like, awesome. Woo!
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that because
we should be happy about that. Like, as women, we should be very happy about that.
Right.
But I also, like, my biggest, not fear, but my biggest thing is I want men who are teaching the right thing to be teaching it. You know?
And they're out there.
Right. And so the podcast you were on, I don't know if it's the right thing.
The podcast that I was on, I think that, you know, in order to get views, they have to feed that drama.
Yeah.
But I don't think that, and they also, it's a different demographic. They're in Miami.
Right.
They're trying to teach girls you can't be hoes and expect
right.
to
they talk about that a lot.
Yeah. They're like, you can't be hoes and expect to get this high quality man because that's just not what men want.
Right.
They don't want a hoe. I mean, they might sleep with a hoe.
Right.
They might mess around with a hoe, but they ain't going to wife a hoe. And again, that resonates with me because it's like that. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with not wanting a hoe? I mean,
absolutely. Yeah. That should be what everyone doesn't want.
Right.
You know?
And so girls on there, they hear that and they get so triggered by that.
Because it seems like for a second that they're calling all women hoes.
Yeah.
And so when they do that, it's like when I first learned about them or whatever, it's like that they treat us like hoes, like all of us, even though we're not, you know, like trifling ass hoes, whatever they say. It's like, but we're not. So that was what I had to learn that they're not doing. But they probably treat a hoe like a hoe, you know? So it's different.
Yes. And that's exactly what I wanted to say. I'm glad that came up because the main host of that show was such a gentleman.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah, that's amazing.
To me, he kicked the other two girls off. And he was like, but to me, he was such a gentleman and he saw me as someone that was, you know, worthy of his respect.
You're not a hoe.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he walked us down. He paid for my Uber. Like everybody, you know, somebody had said, was he as big of an asshole as he seems on the show? It's like, not at all. Because
which is so good to hear from me. Like that was so good to hear from me. That was really cool. And that helped me a lot.
Because he's going to give respect where respect's due. And he does not respect hoes. He doesn't respect somebody that's arguing just to argue that doesn't even really know what they're arguing about. And again, I think that goes back to the whole being triggered and being emotional beings is that sometimes we just can't help that.
Right.
But maybe they go back home later and they're like,
so it's crazy. Yeah. So she said this earlier, I think, about like, it's better to hear it from a woman to woman because it is. You don't get triggered as much because if you think about it, when a man tells us we're emotional, we get pissed. But if we say it to you, if a woman says it to you, you don't get pissed because it's true. It's true. But if a man says it to us, we're defensive and we get pissed.
And we have to start asking ourselves why. Why? Because it's okay to be emotional.
Right. We all have emotions.
Yes.
We have them for a reason.
Yes. And we are different from a man for a reason.
Exactly. And that's the issue is like, we need to be more accepting of that. We need to realize it and be more accepting of it. And just, that's how you become feminine. That's how.
Yep. And just realize that we are not in competition with men.
Right, exactly.
We don't need to be in competition with men.
That's exactly right.
And that's the whole point they're trying to make on that show is that modern day feminism has devolved into something that it didn't start as. It's no longer about women's rights. It's about wanting women to be men, basically.
For real. It is.
And that doesn't need to happen. I also read this book called The Queen's Code. And that also helped me realize a lot of different things about how easy it is to really, when you respect a man and you treat him with respect, how easy it is to get what you want. And I think that, and not in a manipulative way,
right, for sure,
but just like a lot of women
makes them feel good.
Yeah. And a lot of women fear not working because it's like, okay, well then I'm not going to get all these things I want. I am not going to get, but you know what?
I see it every day.
If your man was taking care of you, and you did not have to go to work, and then you respected him and what he's doing for your family, he's going to want to give you everything you want.
Right.
It's just natural.
You're satisfying him in every way.
It's just natural.
Yeah.
It's a natural way of things, I believe, anyway.
Yeah. I brings me back to like when the current vice president that we have, do you watch the debate? And she would be like, I am speaking. She was because I mean, she's obviously she's
in a masculine position.
I'm speaking. That's all she kept saying when he was trying to talk to her. And it was just ridiculous, man. Like I hated it though. Like it was like not,
it didn't feel good to hear like a woman be like that.
Yeah, it didn't. It wasn't that cool to me. So,
So what else? Let's hope this mic's been working the whole time.
Yeah.
We didn't even test it.
We did about 30 tests and watched them, but this one probably, yeah.
This was supposed to be a test, but then it was like,
Testing.
this feels good. We're just going to keep going.
Okay, so I am with a man like this, right? What if I want to work? Because I do like working. It sounds pretty good not to, but I do like doing something. I'm only happy if I'm productive.
Right. And that is the whole point, is that she should have the choice.
Okay.
She should never have to work.
So I work, okay? I work full time. I don't know why I would do that, but I do. What am I expected to do?
I don't know why I do that
out loud. I don't know why I'm doing that, but I do it. And am I expected to also take care of the kids and by myself if he doesn't want to, and do all the dishes and cook every night? What is expected, you know?
That is why it should be her choice, and she should not have to work
But is it not her choice to do those other things then? Is that what you're saying?
Well, that is why I think a lot of things are messed up. I think that's why we have so many divorces. I think that's why we have so many broken families, because that's not the way things are supposed to be. Yeah. Because I think instinctually, the man expects the woman to do it because that is her primary role.
What my husband said.
Right.
Absolutely.
And like also,
which, by the way, I just want to put this out real quick. My husband is totally 50-50 with me and cleans a lot and does all that. So it's not like he doesn't. He's awesome with that kind of stuff. Just want to put that out there.
Well, I think you should tell the viewers what you were telling me earlier about how he asserted himself in a way. And actually it worked.
No, we're good.
No? Okay.
Not right now.
Okay, because that's a good story. Okay.
That's not a confessional, remember?
Yeah, we weren't supposed to do that. Sorry.
No.
Maybe what were we talking about?
Okay, so I want to work. So I want to work because I love work.
Okay, so let's just say, if you did not feel like you had to bring in a certain amount of money, what you do now would not be your choice job.
No.
Right.
No offense.
But
work.
Yeah, but you feel like you have to make X amount of money for whatever reason.
Well, you know me, and you're the same way. We are always ones who want to be really good at our jobs, and we want to be the best. We always want to be the best at everything. We really do.
That's masculine. That's masculine.
And we have this drive, this crazy ass drive in us, So if I could, but honestly, it sounds amazing to be able to let that go.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Just the thought of it.
Oh,
just
God.
the thought of letting that go.
And like, if you think about it, if you're like that, let it go. Just think about letting that go. It's like freeing. It's like a weight comes off of it.
And on top of that, think about letting go of that. Like, I have to do this. I have to be the best. I have to produce. I have to do
shit.
And just think if you could let that go and still feel safe.
And
that's a good point. And still feel safe.
Yes. And put it into your family. So everything that I'm doing at work, all my energy, all our energy, we put it into our family and our relationships, because life is about relationships. 100%. That's what we're here for. We are here for relationships. And you're able to put it into those things instead, we would be so fulfilled inside ourselves.
Yep.
That's what life is.
Into our relationships
and our children,
our home, like not having to rush home from work to go get the kids, to go take them to their practice.
And you're pissy. You're pissy when you do that. You're tired.
Exhausted.
You're not 100% for your family at all. And that's why you fight with your husband, whatever. Or you're snipping with your children. Yeah. Because you're exhausted. And we're not meant to do that.
And we're not fulfilling what we feel is our purpose as women.
Yeah.
Because that is where men get their purpose. They get their purpose from doing, producing, providing, and being able to take care of their family in that way. We get our purpose from being able to take care of our family in a different way, the nurturing side. That is why men and women complement each other in this way, because we are polar opposites, like a yin yang. We fit perfectly together. And when the roles get messed up like this,
you're both doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
You're both doing the same thing. It becomes more of a competition.
It does. It doesn't work. And then you fight over, well, I'm too tired to do this. You got to help me. Like, it's just 50-50 all the time. And that's tough. That's tough. And another thing that's tough is like, and I wish I could do this, but a man can literally sit in a goddamn messy house and not give a shit. And we can't, like, it bothers us more.
I can. No, the thing is,
you're a man, remember?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I never feel like I have time.
Right.
So it's like, I hate a messy house.
Doesn't it feel amazing when you have a clean house?
Yes, because I hate a messy house. I do hate a messy house, but I just feel like I'm never home by the time I get home, because I have dance practice. Yes. I have my son's wrestling practice. I have work. I have to go figure out dinner. By the time I ever even sit down, it's like, well after 10 o'clock at night.
Girl, yeah.
When I just sit down, and that doesn't
I know.
even include the cleaning.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, it gets very difficult over time.
And I think what my point is, like, it weighs on us more. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like it does. So
The messy house, you mean?
Yeah. And then I get bitchy because it's like messy and I'm tired and I just get bitchy about it because it weighs on me more.
Mhm.
And like, obviously he wants a clean house too, but he can watch a football game and not give a shit about it. I can't. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I just can't, it's hard for me.
Yeah.
So I just think a lot of stress comes from, obviously.
Well, and that's a good point that you make too, because why is that? It's because naturally,
right, exactly,
your goal is to take care of the home.
Exactly.
Like that's
Exactly.
just naturally.
That's
Otherwise,
totally
it wouldn't bother you.
Exactly. Yep.
And
That's
why
what
do we hate going to work and being a man at work? Because it's not naturally our role.
Exactly. So that's why it's funny how we get mad about like women are supposed to clean the house, right? We get mad about it though. If you hear that, that triggers us.
Yes. I used to fight about this. Like, it doesn't need to be the woman's role, blah, 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 blah. But that is a conditioning. Like, why do we get mad about that? Well, it's because we have to do it all.
Yeah.
We have to
Which
go to
I
work.
don't. Oh yeah, that's true.
We have to go to work.
Yeah.
And we're expected to be the primary cleaner of the house or the primary caretaker of the kids or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, if we didn't have to go to work every day and somebody says your role is to clean the house, I'd be like,
awesome.
Hell yeah. Thank you.
So your role as a woman would be to clean the house, make sure the kids get ready off to school, right? You make their lunches, whatever. But you're like happy
to do it.
Right now, if I have a day off and my kids are going to school, I am happy as hell.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy. And when I'm working, I'm getting ready for work. On top of it, I'm stressed out. I'm snippy. Get your shoes on. Like, it's a horrible experience, really. I mean, I try to be nice, but I'm just saying, like, I can feel the difference in myself when I don't work versus when I do in the morning with my kids every time.
And then think of this too. Like, if you're at home and then your husband's coming in the door from all day at work and he's tired and everything, how much more pleasant would it be to come home to a happy wife?
Yes.
Than it would be to come home to a wife that's also exhausted.
Yes, exactly. Totally. And then he can just go relax and because everything's done, you cook dinner, whatever. And we get mad about that stuff though.
Yeah.
We get mad about when we hear it. When we hear it, it's different. But when we talk about it, it makes sense.
Yes.
It's
like, you mean as women in general. Yeah.
Right. We can talk to each other about it. And like, it's just interesting how we get mad about it. But there's going to be a lot of women on the show that are watching the show that are saying, well, I can't. Single moms, for example, or just anything like single moms or people in not good relationships, or maybe their husband doesn't make enough money. A lot of people, especially now with inflation and everything else, like
that's not possible for them.
It's not possible. So then what? Then
I would say as a woman, then your primary goal, in my opinion, should be how to get in touch with your feminine energy, because all that doing and going and working and producing and all these things that you have to keep afloat keeps us in our masculine energy.
But we can't get out of that right now, right?
Well, no, what we can do to get in touch with our feminine energy is carve time out for ourselves. And actually what they teach in another group that I took, or that I'm in, or whatever you want to, a program I took, a feminine program that I took, is like, it sounds odd to say it, but the more selfish you can be as a woman,
for sure, I know that.
The more
Self-care,
selfish,
man.
The more selfish that you can be, and I don't mean selfish in terms of using other people.
Self-care,
yes,
that's a huge movement too. It's gotten way bigger.
And by self-care, carve time out to where you are not obligated to do anything else except for whatever makes you happy.
So here's another problem with that, and this is going to be a lot of viewers too. You can't, because you have a husband who's not. It doesn't allow you to do that. That's also an issue. A lot of times it's an issue.
And that would be a man that's not in touch with his masculine energy, because his masculine energy should be, yes, please do something that makes you more of a woman.
Yeah.
If taking a bath, if you need to go take a bath, I don't need anything from you. Get in the bath.
Yeah. And he's going to stay with the kids and let her take a bath. Is that
you would think? I would.
Right. Is that like the masculine man though?
Yes.
Because I think that's important to say, because I think when we think about it and we don't understand it, we don't look at it that way. We look at it as, because this is how I viewed it at first with that podcast. And I think some of them feel this way. No, I don't have to see my kid every day, which was what was said on that podcast by one of the men. I don't have to see my kids every day. That's a woman's job. I don't agree with that completely, but whatever. But what was I saying?
About what some of them think about the whole self-care for a woman taking time out for herself.
Oh, yeah. I just feel like some men aren't going to take care of the kids to let you do that. But again, it's because they're not.
So
Whatever.
do it once they're in bed.
Right.
Put them to bed earlier. Like at the end of the day, all we can control is ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We can't control if someone's going to participate in our
Right.
journey to become more feminine.
That's very true.
So it's only up to us. We have to do whatever it takes. If we have to put the kids to bed an hour and a half earlier today so that I can go take a bath and put music on that I want to listen to and dance in the mirror or whatever.
The biggest challenge is the guilt, the mom guilt that people, and that's what you have to get over, because everyone has that mom guilt, man. Every mom, I think, has the mom guilt, but like, that's what you have to get over in order to get there, because you do, you know, you feel bad. You feel like it's a bad thing to take care of yourself, when really you're a better person. You're a better mom. You're a better wife. You're better everything when you do take care of yourself. That's just a
because
fact.
it makes you happier. It makes you more in touch with your feminine.
It's just great.
And that's another thing. Like, why do we have that guilt? It's all conditioning. It's all programming. It's all, you know, what we've seen on shows, movies, heard in songs. Like, it's all about that, you know, like, because we don't know why we think the way we think.
Right.
We know on one hand, I shouldn't feel guilty. We know on the other hand, I feel guilty.
Yeah, every time.
So it's like, that's a conflict. But what you have to do is get really real and really in touch with your heart. What does my heart desire?
Right.
Your desires can't be wrong.
Yep.
Your desires, like when they're only having to do with you, like when they don't have anything to do with, I desire him to go do this. Like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. When it's like, I desire to go take a bath, or I desire to go to a dance class, or whatever it may be, when it has nothing to do with anyone else, that's your responsibility.
Let's stop there, because we can go on and on about this. Let's save it for the next episode.
Okay. And then on the next episode too, we should do clips of the controversial podcast that I was on.
We're definitely going to be playing clips of that. So,
and then responding, and maybe we'll get some questions from some of our friends to see.
Yeah, definitely send us questions. You can find us on Instagram at
the RelatableAF Podcast.
Yep. You can find us on YouTube at RelatableAF. And thanks for joining.
Come back.